Hey family, welcome back to another video. In this video, we're going to be telling you about 7 books that completely changed our lives. No, that was not a recording, that was just a practice. So we're going to do it again.
You never know what's in a record. What happens when high school lovebirds get married?
They move to a new city and start a YouTube channel, of course.
Welcome to Adventures of XyZ. I'm Xaundre.
And I'm Zara.
I'm a doctor.
And I'm a lawyer.
But we both just really love sharing our faith and going on cool adventures.
So we created this channel to share our journey as we attempt to use biblical principles to navigate life.
And have a whole lot of fun doing it.
So, come along with us!
So guys, if you watched our previous videos, you would know that we spent a weekend at Ecoscape, Jamaica. And we thoroughly are enjoying our time. So much so that we figure, let's just take the opportunity to record a few more videos.
Exactly.
And let you guys know what's up. So if you haven't seen those videos as yet, please go ahead and watch them. You'll love them.
We'll drop our card here so that you can check it out. So we actually have none of these books hard copy because we don't really do hard copy. Yeah. If you're interested in hard copy, you can find them all on Amazon. We mostly read. I read on my iPad. Xaundre reads on his Kindle. I also read a lot on my phone because, you know, for the amount of books that I read, we wouldn't have space.
Yeah, we wouldn't have space to keep them. Plus, so book number 1. And this has completely revolutionized our idea of lifestyle design, our idea of freedom, our idea of what we ultimately want to aim for in this life. And this is 4-Hour Work Week by Timothy Ferriss. A life-changing book.
Definitely life-changing.
Basically, in this book, Timothy Ferriss posits the idea that what is to be feared is not work. Rather, it's boredom. And if we live the traditional life of working a 9 to 5 from you're 25 years old right until you're 65 years old, spending your entire productive time just working away, then when you get to 65, you're ready to retire, you're going to essentially retire to a life of boredom. Exactly. Because when you're finally ready to hike the Appalachian Trail, because you finally have the time to do it, you have arthritis in your knee.
Your knee and your back are hurting.
Yeah, so how do you do that, you know?
Yeah.
And so instead, what he suggests is that we take a life filled with mini retirements.
Yes.
And
that was my favorite part.
Yeah, that was her favorite part of the book. If we can just make a quick disclaimer here. This is our idea of a good life.
It might not be yours.
It might not be yours.
And that's okay.
Yeah. We're just sharing our opinions, guys. Yeah. And also, we don't mean to be rude or to be mean to anybody who, you know, sees life a little differently from we do, or even people who wanted this opportunity but for whatever reason didn't get it, you know. We empathize with you, but we still think that there are things you can learn. It's never too late to start on this journey if this is something that interests you. Alright, so back to the book. So Tim Ferriss said that mini retirements are basically short stints that are spent in different places in the world. Short, meaning not like 2 weeks or 3 weeks, but maybe like 3 or 4 months. And you immerse yourself into the culture of the people that are there. You enjoy your time while you're there, while you're working on something that can really add value to people's lives so that that thing can generate income and you can live off of it.
In addition to that, he made an emphasis on how you can get there, and I love that he never just said go start a business. You know, he put a lot of emphasis on the fact that you can start demanding more at work. Either you're going to demand more time or more money because you're going to show your value.
Right.
And I think it's important that we put emphasis on the fact that what you really do in society is add value. Whatever you're going to be doing, you're going to be adding value every single day, and your value add is what will set you apart, and your value add is what will allow you to actually make money, because value is money and money is value.
Yeah. One day we'll talk all about our thoughts on personal finance. But essentially what Tim Ferriss said in this book is that if you can generate enough value in a short enough period of time, then you can basically get more time off.
Yes.
So prove to your employer if you're employed to somebody, that you can do more in less time, so you can get more time off, and also so that you can start demanding the opportunity to work remotely.
Yes.
If you can negotiate with your employer an opportunity for you to work remotely by creating systems that show that they're more efficient when you work remotely, then you're essentially setting up yourself for mini retirements, where you can go around the different places in the world and you can live there. Yep.
One of the biggest issues I had with Tim Ferriss's book, Those On, it was very first world focused.
It was.
And I wanted to explicitly say that because we do have a predominantly Jamaican audience.
Yeah.
And with a first world focused perspective, it kind of gets a little tricky on our side.
Yeah.
So I want us to kind of talk about how do we look at that from a third world perspective. I don't know how easy it is to demand that respect from a third world country employer.
All right. Fair point.
With the resources that we have in like Jamaica and Antigua and Barbados and those places.
Principles are universal. How they're applied might be a little bit different.
Yeah.
And by no means suggesting that the things that Tim says in the book are easy to come by.
Yeah.
Most people who embrace the philosophy that Tim talks about will never be able to work 4 hours alone for the week.
True.
He teaches you how to optimize systems so that you spend less time working and more time enjoying it. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to spend only 4 hours working each week in order to make it make sense.
Yes.
But he got his own down to 4 hours based on the systems that he had created. But the point is, we don't have to live a life that's exactly like Tim in order for Tim's principles to be useful for us.
That's true.
Because our life don't look anything like Tim own.
No.
Certainly not yet.
No, not yet. But we're getting there.
But we're getting there. But it's still very useful.
And I think it really places emphasis on the fact that we work so much and so hard that when we do earn money, we're so tired, we don't know how to use it. Like, we don't know how to really enjoy the money that we've been earning. So,
and we also don't know how much money it takes for us to live the dream life.
Yes, we think it's some big exorbitant
amount of. And I know we're not doing justice to Tim's book because we read it over 2 years
and
ago.
if you want, this is just the books that change our lives. We're just introducing the books to you. For more details, you can go and buy the books yourselves, or you can read like deep reviews.
Yeah.
So the second book is The 5 Love Languages, and
Gary Chapman,
I know he throws it down, and I think it has revolutionized the way we communicate, but also the way we communicate with people.
Yep.
So what Gary Chapman did in The 5 Love Languages is that he told us that there are different ways that people accept love and different ways that people show love. So we have the love language of touch, physical touch, gifts, quality time, acts of service, and words of affirmation. So if you have a partner, if you have your children, if you have your friends, if you have people around you, it is really up to you to figure out how they show love and how they receive love, and it will really help you to communicate to that person. So you remember how I was telling you guys in the other video that Xaundre never really love, he doesn't really love birthdays like that, but he's not a gift person, and we would have had instances where he would have gotten gifts and he would have, like, you know, it's not appreciated in the way that I would think he should appreciate it, because it means a big deal to me. And yes, he values it because I gave it to him, but it would mean so much more if we would spend time somewhere, because quality time was way up on his list. And of course, physical touch, which you never really get to explore much until now, you understand. As you guys would know, that Xaundre is a physical touch guy.
And also to add that, somebody calling? Oh, just
Is he not busy?
Yes, it's the green one.
Oh.
So how you use it? Like, which part of it you boil?
You just scrape off here and you scrape off the outside here and the greater inside of it.
Okay.
Both seed, you just grate the seed of it.
You can open it?
Yes, this opening will fit now, so it, when them young, them close, so them burst now, them fit, so you just...
So them grow up on tree, like
tall
tree?
Yes.
Busy how you even in your price?
You pass the tree, right?
Pass the tree.
Yes, around there.
Okay.
So this now, you just scrape off like this now. And you can grate it green, and you can grate it dry. And you can put on for years after it dry.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
And this is nutmeg.
Yes,
nutmeg.
This is the green one. So we can take that those with you.
Okay.
Those are the dry ones.
And we have a nutmeg tree on property, I recall. There's a nutmeg tree here.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly where it is, but Ricardo was
Mr.
telling us.
Bowman,
by the great house.
So on that topic of physical touch, right? There are like levels to physical touch. So sometimes your love language can be just giving a hug. Meaning, if your primary love language is physical touch, it can manifest as just wanting to give somebody a hug. Or it might be a little more than that. You know, but kind of ranking your love languages from the most important to the least important will really help you to understand why you react to people's attempts to show love how you do, and why other people react the way that they do when you attempt to give them love.
Yeah, and another thing about that I really enjoyed is the fact that sometimes how you show love is not how you receive it.
Yeah.
So you might be showing somebody love by going to spend quality time with them because that's just what you think you should do. But then then they will try to reciprocate with the same energy when the truth is you wanted a gift. So that's why it's so important to be clear, and understanding how those love languages work really, really helps to set expectations.
Yep.
So the next book is The Act of Marriage by Tim and Beverly Lahaye.
Trouble.
And that book was loaned to us by a friend. Big up yourself, friend.
No call no name,
call no
friend.
name. But
Best thing you could have done for us.
honestly, it's a book for, I would say, for newlyweds. Predominantly, it spoke about the act of marriage. If you're a newlywed, if you're getting married soon,
Like 2 weeks before.
like 2 weeks before.
Yeah.
We got it after.
He gave it to us just before.
but we never read it until
we never.
after.
Yeah, I think we were supposed to read it just before, but
Yeah.
we just never got to it.
Exactly. Because there are chapters on honeymoon, there are chapters on things that ladies should do before, there are chapters on the guy knowing how to do stuff, like details.
Alright, guys, if we can just break a little of the mystery that's shrouding this book. It literally tells you how to have sex. It teaches you the science behind sex
From a biblical
and
perspective.
it does it from a biblical perspective.
It's such a pure book.
And it removes the guilt and shame that's heaped onto people who have seen sex as a dirty thing for so long. And I think that aids in the Jerusalem experience. You understand?
For sure.
Because then your mind
For
is
sure.
in such a in a much purer place. And you're also very informed, because when you're clueless going into this,
that's when selfishness comes in.
Yeah.
That's when immaturity and just lack of experience and a lot of how some people,
cluelessness, like genuine cluelessness, like you literally don't know what you're doing.
and it's okay to be clueless, especially if you were waiting at this moment. No, you need to take away the cluelessness. No, if you are getting married soon, please, we highly recommend it.
Definitely.
especially and I would even say for people who are not virgins as well, because what it does for you is that because it talks about it from a biblical perspective, you are able to see it in a different light, completely different light. And it really helps you to understand what God's truest plan for it was and how it looks in marriage. Because I strongly believe that how it looks outside of marriage, it's different inside of marriage. So I still would recommend it. And then also for those aunties, big sisters, big uncles, big brothers who know of people getting married, it is the perfect wedding gift. You never think about that?
I don't give gifts.
Oh, true. But it's a perfect. People don't really want wedding gifts anymore because they pay for money. But trust me, especially if it's somebody.
Still send them the money.
Still send them. Yeah, still send that money in the registry. But this book is a really good wedding gift, and I mean, we passed on the hard copy to another friend of ours, and we got the soft copy to keep for ourselves because we'll always reference it, and as we talk to young couples, we'll also reference it. It is a little explicit, but it is more of a textbook than it is like a erotic novel.
Yeah, it's definitely
It's
not
not a novel. It literally
it's a
is
textbook.
It literally is. This is how you do this. This is how you prepare for the honeymoon. These are things that you can do. So how we are talking about accessories? That book don't talk about accessories. That book goes in detail and tells you what the accessories are. That book actually gives you a honeymoon exercise. It tells you script word for word what to do on the honeymoon.
Yeah.
And I mean, we never really do that on the honeymoon still, but
thank God for like a med school and keep me at med school, kind of just extrapolate and conversations
between us
and with guys from before, married guys from before, because they were very helpful.
Yeah.
Next book Messages to Young People
By Ellen G. White.
This book is single-handedly responsible for maybe 80% of my spiritual growth between fourth form and the end of university.
For sure. And I think
single-handedly.
You hear us refer to Ellen G. White as Auntie Ellen. For those who aren't Adventists, she is what Adventists believe to be a prophetess. And I mean, we're not over here trying to indoctrinate you. So even if you don't believe that, there is not a debate right now about whether or not she's a prophetess or whatever. But you see that book?
Just take it as good advice.
Take it as good advice from a person. And we'll refer to her as Auntie Ellen because, especially Messages to Young People, kind of transformed how we see her.
Yeah.
You know, growing up in the Adventist church, sometimes you might feel, depending on which country you grew up in or which area of a specific country that you grew up in, you might feel like some of the older people are kind of the church kind of beats you down with Ellen G. White and you know what she has to say and stuff. And for a long time I was very resentful of her, and I felt like, you know, this lady I tried to tell me how to live my life, and
she do not
in a very dogmatic way actually. But when I read Messages to Young People and Letters to Young Lovers and those type of books, you recognize that she had a burning passion for young people, and it was from a more perspective of I genuinely care about you and I care about your growth. So these are some of the things that I suggest, that I recommend based on the little experience that I have and based on the insight that God has given me.
I thoroughly enjoyed reading that book because anytime I had a question about anything, I would go to the book to see what she says about it, because she's a woman packed with wisdom and she gives biblical advice.
Yeah. She spoke about a lot of stuff: music, relationships, how you should behave in social settings.
Yep.
All of that.
In fact, before I knew about self-help books, Messages to Young People was the first self-help book I had ever read.
Oh wow.
Because in it she talks about heights of success.
Yes.
The name of the chapter is Heights That Can Be Attained. That's the name of it. And basically in it she said, no child of God is, and I'm paraphrasing, but I'm trying to say it in her voice anyway, because she speaks in Old English. But like she would say, no child of God is going to get away with not expending every last bit of energy to reach the heights that can be attained.
Wow.
Basically saying that if you sit at home on your butt and do nothing when God is calling you to do things, even for temporal gain, even for things that don't appear to be inherently spiritual, you will have to account for that wasted time.
Yep.
And like some big drape up I tell you about it, guys. Like she would say things like, you dream that you will one day sit upon the summit of intellectual greatness, and that you will sit in legislative halls and make laws and blah 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 blah.
Well, you remember these things? You call on your Messages to Young People.
But I also went back to it a couple of times, you know. Yes. And then like she'll continue and she'll say, there is nothing wrong in these pursuits, and just like, whoa. And like she would continue and say, you know, but any height you think that you want to attain, remember you must take your religion with you. And then, you know, that just kind of sets your perspective from early that God wants you to succeed, but you can't attempt to do it without Him.
Facts.
You know, books like these really set your perspective right. I would definitely recommend Messages to Young People by Ellen G. White.
It's also free in the E.G. White app, so
download the app.
Alright, so the next book is Boundaries by Dr. Henry Cloud. And this book's, I know how you feel about the Boundaries book, because what it does is that it really helps you to set boundaries with the people who you find it very hard to set boundaries with, so those who are closest to you, and the people who you think expect so much of you, so like your employers and just people who you interact with daily. It really talks about making sure that you put your mental health first, making sure that you put what you are prioritizing first at that particular time.
It also removes the guilt of saying no.
Yes.
I think that's the biggest thing. Well, it did two really big things for me.
Yes.
By the way, how I came across this book was actually, I stumbled upon it by accident, and I started reading it because I was on a flight and couldn't download anything else.
Oh, okay.
It was purely, at least I thought, coincidental, but it was divine. It was around the time when I was preparing to propose to Zara, and you know, I was a little timid when it came on to having these hard to have conversations with people in my family, people in her family. I was just wondering, you know, what they would say, and this book almost gave me a blueprint on how to deal with people when you think that they may be opposed to what you're saying. You know, it teaches you how to be respectful, but at the same time, you know, you're still very clear and very open. Thankfully, that just boosted my confidence to go and have these hard-to-have conversations, which were all quite pleasant, man. but it gave me that confidence boost that I needed. That's the first thing that it did. And the second thing is, as I mentioned before, it removed the guilt of saying no. I used to be a yes man. Like,
both of us actually.
Both of us used to be yes people. Anything you ask us to do, we're going to say it. And it started to take a toll on us.
Yeah.
Like, we started to do so much church work, started to do so many presentations,
so many projects that our spiritual life and mental health would start to suffer as a result of all of this pressure that you're putting yourself under. But the truth is that God is not going to necessarily stretch out a hand to help you when you're barking up a tree He never sent you to climb. So you need to know which battles to choose in the first place. I think also what it did for me was that it helped me to distinguish between boundaries and walls. And understanding that, yes, you will have to set up boundaries in order to help your mental health, but you still should allow people to help you, and you can't just have walls up all the time, because boundaries keep out unwanted people and unwanted expectations and unwanted situations, but walls keep out things that you need, including good stuff.
And last thing that I'll say on the book Boundaries, you see, for those of us who struggle with always feeling pressured, or employer always pressuring us, or family always pressuring us, like people get under your skin,
and all hours of the night,
people are calling you and you're blaming everybody for everything else that's happening in the world. Like, boy, I just can't sleep at night because this and that and that and that. Like, it teaches you to take responsibility for your own life and realize that the reason you're having these problems with people is because you don't have the right boundaries.
And Zon, one last thing. It taught us how to be clear on our boundaries.
Yes.
A boundary is not a boundary if you never, ever say it.
Exactly. You can't just expect people to know your boundaries. You have to be clear on what your boundaries are. You know, so that was very important.
Very important.
Alright guys, I won't spend too long talking about this book. I read it a while back. To be honest, I didn't even read this book, like take it up and read it physically. I listened to it as an audio book. It was when I was between Mobe and Kingston, which is like a 3-hour drive. And you know, each way I would just listen to it on YouTube. And I learned that, you know, the concepts of the book. So,
and then he would tell me. That's how we read a lot of these books. Most of the ones that we spoke about before, we both read them. This and a lot of Xaundre's financial books, he reads them and then just tell me.
I mean, she does the same thing with social media. So, you know. And also some other books, even some spiritual books that she's reading. Like that one that Millie gave you.
The Fervent Prayer. What's the name of the book, man? The book.
The prayer book.
The prayer book. I remember the name of the book. May I read it up to yesterday? I read the book.
But anyway, we do that sometimes. So when I read this book, or when I listened to this book, which by the way is free on YouTube, don't tell YouTube that I said so, but it's free on YouTube. It changed my view on money, because it taught some sound financial principles by kind of using an allegory. That's the thing when they use like a story to teach a thing, but it's not really a real story. Anyway, the point is,
remember seminary and things so far.
So basically, it was telling the story of the richest man in Babylon at the time. It was completely fictional, but it teaches key financial principles. So things like making sure that you pay yourself first, which for us as Christians, you really pay yourself after you give your tithe. So you give your tithe and then you invest a portion, no less than 10% must be invested. Then some goes towards debt reduction. Then the rest of it, he teaches you how to break down the rest of it, and just sound financial principles. I would definitely 10 out of 10 recommend this book. It's not the easiest to read because it's in old English. That's why she never read it, but I just went through like the key principles with her. And as a matter of fact, this book was so good that I gave it to a friend of mine who then wrote out all the principles from it and taught them back to me, and that's when we also spoke about it. So definitely recommend The Richest Man in Babylon to get your finances kind of streamlined.
I think it also helps with our relationship with money, how we viewed it as much more of a vehicle than anything else,
right?
And helping you to actually achieve the goals instead of helping you to live hand to mouth.
Exactly.
And
and seeing money as a store of value. So not inherently valuable, but it stores the value that you have put into the world.
Yes. The next book is Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Oh wait, we're back to me.
Yes, it's you did start read about that. I read it a little bit, but I just drop us to it, but then you told me about it.
Yeah guys, as I said, we read a lot of those books like that. Alright, so Atomic Habits, it changed my life, and by extension told her about it, and she started to read it, and it changed her life. Because Atomic Habits speaks about the fact that small changes every day eventually will change the direction of your life. And I think for me, what this book did is that it showed me that sporadically getting motivated and then pushing, like sprinting towards a goal,
doesn't get you anywhere.
You're not going to ever reach anywhere.
Yep.
Instead, what you need to do is to make micro changes every day, get 1% better each day, and then eventually you'll get to where you want to go.
Exactly.
I think the quote from James Clear in that book that really hit home for me is when he said, "You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems."
Yes.
And so, ask Zara, we're always talking about systems.
Systems. We're a
systems people.
And I think for that, in that time when I read Atomic Habits, it was when I wanted to grow spiritually.
Yes.
And it helped me know to realize that I never had to be able to recite scripture right away, or I never had to be able to understand prophecies right away. But what God needed from me was a little more than what I was currently doing.
Yeah.
So instead of trying to be into a 2-hour Bible study and feeling pressured by other people who were doing that, I would say, okay, I'm going to read a 5-minute devotional.
Yeah.
And then from the consistency is what I needed to know to be able to go a little further. I know I was prayer journaling, and then from prayer journaling, I know I could talk to God more clearly.
You see, for the person who is struggling to make meaningful change in your life, like there's something you want to do, you want to start to exercise, you want to start to eat properly, you want to start having prayer journals, start doing devotions and stuff like that, this is the book for you.
For sure.
Small steps, big changes in direction. And another point that he made in the book that really, really struck home for me is the fact that, like, the deepest, I don't know if he's the one that said this, but he certainly built on this point, but the deepest need in the human life is to stay consistent with your identity.
Yeah.
And so those of us who identify as an athlete will always find ways to exercise, always find ways to be active. But those of us who identify as, I'm not an exercise person.
Yeah.
And you'll never start exercising. I'm not a risk taker. You'll never start taking risks.
You'll never start going anywhere.
Yeah.
Because that's just not what you do. I love me hard.
Yeah.
But then you watch Adventures of XyZ, you're like, I wish I would want to do something like that. You can!
Like do it.
Like we're regular people.
Like ask yourself the question.
What do I need to do?
Exactly. And then actively pursue it. And I think because he breaks things down into bite-sized chunks, it's really, really helpful and really useful. So guys, thanks for sticking around until almost the end of this video. But since you're here, we're going to give you a bonus. The Adventist Home.
Oh, yeah.
So Zara wants to mention another book, right? But until she gets it, Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. Don't take like religious advice from that book, but like principles on giving up on procrastination and drifting and just jumping from one thing to the next, and shiny object syndrome. Very good. Outwitting the Devil. As I say, don't take like biblical advice from that book though. Another one by Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. Quite a good book. Think and Grow Rich is a good Think and Grow Rich is a good one. Rich Dad Poor Dad, the principles are very, very basic but very important. If you don't know those, then you really can't move on in terms of financial independence. So I definitely recommend like a summary or something on that book, because the principles are important. The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. But if you read Atomic Habit, you probably don't need to read Power of Habit. And let me see what else. Show Your Work what's that man's name? I don't remember the name of the man, but Show Your Work is a really good book as well. It talks about, basically bringing people along the journey of self-development with you, and that people will appreciate learning things as you're learning them. And that's why, we do stuff like this.
That's how we do stuff like this.
Yeah.
And the name of the book that I have been reading for the past month and totally forgot the name is Daring to Ask for More by Melody Mason.
Yes.
It's a book. It's a life-changing book. It's a book about divine keys to answered prayers, and it really helps to transform your prayer life. You'll never look on prayer the same. You can find it online, or if you're near to any IADPA bookstore, that's a IADPA mean Adventist Bookstore International. I don't know, something like that.
Inter-American Division Publishing Association.
But yeah, Daring to Ask for More is transformational. Love it. I've been reading it as a part of my devotion, so I didn't read all of it at once, but kind of over the past maybe 2-3 months, I've been just reading it chunk by chunk, and then I tell Xaundre about the stuff that I read. So.
Yeah, I've never read that book, but she tells me.
But you've read it through me.
Through you.
Yeah. All right, guys, those are some of the 7 books plus Brata that have changed our life. So we really hope that they help you, and we would love to hear whether or not you have additional books that we can learn from, and the people who are also going to be reading the comments.
Alrighty guys, so that's all for us for this video, but thanks for coming along with us, and we'll see you next time on Adventures of XyZ. Bye. Babe, what's your favorite beverage?
Coconut water.
One water there. The best water.
Best water. Thank you.
It's the only water but your heart. Coconut water and white rum. That's not good.